Let me tell you nothing, and I mean nothing, wakes you up quite like the sound of heavy machinery tearing apart 15 years of your life's work. That's how my Tuesday started. I stood there in my slippers watching the HOA president, Patricia Kellerman, with a smile so fake it could have been printed at Kinko's, cheering on her demolition crew as they tore into the dam I'd built with my late wife Sarah. You ever see someone so sure of themselves, so wrapped up in their own power, that you just know they're making a mistake they'll regret for the rest of their life? Yeah, that was Patricia. But she had no clue just how far I'd go to defend what was right. Not just for me, but for everyone on this block who ever trusted me with a wrench or a backhoe. Let me back up a second. This story, it's not just about me and some overreaching HOA. It's about justice, community, and what happens when you mess with a guy who spent 40 years outsmarting Mother Nature. See this dam. It wasn't just some backyard project slapped together over a weekend. Sarah and I built it after Hurricane Isabel hit in 2003, watching our neighbors haul waterlogged furniture to the curb. We lost count of the ruined basements, the trashed family photos, the heartbreak. And one night sitting in our kitchen over coffee, Sarah said, "Frank, you spent 30 years with the Army Corps of Engineers. You know how to stop this." So we did. Permit soil tests, the whole 9 yards. 3 months of sweat, 12 grand, and enough paperwork to fill a filing cabinet. But by the end of that summer, our little dam had turned that flood zone into a safe spot, saving 23 homes at least 3 times since. Fast forward to last October, and I get a certified letter, one of those where the mailman makes you sign for it like you're picking up government secrets. Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association, urgent legal notice. Sarah was gone by then, 2 years into being a memory. I kept alive with morning coffee for 2. I sat at our table staring at the letter, hands shaking not from the caffeine but from what I knew was coming. Unauthorized water management structure. Immediate compliance payment of $847 a month. I read that 3 times thinking it was a prank. They wanted me to pay $1,000 a month to keep the dam I built on my own property protecting their homes. You know what I mean? Some things just don't add up. Patricia's letter sounded official. Lots of big words about community standards and liability risks. I'd never even met her before, so I did what any stubborn old engineer would do. I grabbed my files, permits, inspection records, everything Sarah and I had done by the book, and called her up. "Miss Kellerman, this is Frank Morrison on Maple. Got your letter about my dam." She answered with that syrupy tone people use when they're trying to sell you a lemon. "Oh, good. That structure is a real concern for the community. We need to discuss compliance." I told her plain as day that everything was legal. She insisted the HOA had the power to overrule the county. Claimed my dam was an eyesore and a liability. I asked about her engineering background, crickets. She said the HOA supersedes individual property decisions. That's when I knew she didn't have a clue. So I called Tom Brennan, the same attorney who handled Sarah's estate. 32 years practicing in our county, knew every judge, every clerk, every loophole. Tom took one look at Patricia's letter and burst out laughing. "Frank, this is the dumbest HOA overreach I've seen in decades. You're solid. Let's file a counter-complaint and shut this down." I felt good walking out of his office that day. The law was on my side. The facts were on my side. And turns out my neighbors were on my side too. Mrs. Chen, whose basement I'd saved 3 times, showed up with cookies and a $500 check. The Martinez family chipped in another $300. Even Jake Williams, a retired cop from 2 streets over, knocked on my door and said, "Count me in for whatever you need." By Monday, I had a dozen neighbors backing me up, some with money, some ready to testify. But Patricia wasn't finished. Tuesday morning before sunrise, I woke to that machinery again, yellow excavator in my backyard, 3 men with hard hats, one filming everything with his phone. Patricia was there in a white truck, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. I asked what was going on. She handed me a county condemnation order, supposedly signed by David Walsh. I knew everyone at the county, never heard of him. She claimed the dam was condemned and they had to remove it for public safety. I called Tom voicemail, called the county, got the runaround, called the sheriff. He said it looked official, nothing he could do. The contractor lady paid us county, says take it down, we take it down, call City Hall. By 9:30, my dam was nothing but a muddy pile. I stood there numb, watching years of work and memories wash away. It got worse. That same day, the Weather Service issued a flash flood warning. 3 to 5 inches of rain in 12 hours right over our neighborhood. I did the math. Without my dam, every drop was going straight into those old storm drains. By midnight, water was already creeping up Mrs. Chen's driveway. By 2 sump pumps were losing the battle. At 3 a.m., her basement flooded 3 feet of muddy water. Everything her late husband built over 20 years, floating like driftwood. Martinez's cars were underwater by sunrise. Kids' bedrooms soaked, baseball cards, ruined stuffed animals gone. I documented every bit of it. Photos, measurements, timestamps, because that's what engineers do. In the end, 3 families with flooded basements, 2 lost cars, and 1 neighborhood staring at $127,000 in damage. Patricia, she sent an email blaming me, said my illegal construction had caused the flooding and I should pay for all damages. It was like watching someone burn down your house and then send you a bill for the ashes. Jake Williams, bless him, did some digging. Turns out that county condemnation order was a fake. There was no David Walsh at the engineering office, no inspection, no complaints. Even the white truck was registered to Kellerman Brothers Construction, her brother-in-law's company. She hired her own family to demolish my dam with forged paperwork. We weren't done yet. Jake pulled HOA records, public contracts, even hacked into her email. He's old school but knows his stuff. Patricia had been paying her brother-in-law's company ridiculous amounts for emergency repairs. $43,000 in 6 months. She was funneling HOA money, jacking up invoices, and targeting me because my dam protected property values, which she wanted to drop so she could buy houses cheap and flip them for a profit. She even bragged about it in her emails. When the flood hit, it was the opportunity she needed. But she didn't count on a paper trail leading right back to her. Tom filed an emergency motion to freeze Patricia's assets. We served her the papers just as she was closing on her own house, ready to skip town. Jake caught her on video retrieving boxes from a storage unit. Turned out to be HOA documents, contracts, everything we needed to prove fraud. The county engineer, Robert Hayes, testified on my behalf. Mr. Morrison's dam was textbook construction. Removing it was engineering malpractice. Dr. Mitchell, a flood control expert I'd mentored years ago, did an analysis proving that 96% of the flood damage would never have happened if my dam had been left alone. The trial was brutal for Patricia. She tried to claim she was protecting the neighborhood, but under cross-examination she fell apart, admitting she'd forged documents, orchestrated the demolition, and planned to profit from the chaos. The jury didn't even need a full afternoon. Guilty on every count. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery. The judge hit her with federal prison time, restitution for the flood victims, and a court order to sell her house to pay damages. Her real estate license was stripped. Her empire turned to dust. But you know what felt like real justice? 6 months later, the county rebuilt my dam as an official flood control structure. They paid for everything, maintenance, upgrades, the works. Mrs. Chen became our new HOA president, dissolved the old association, and rebuilt it with real rules, elected oversight, and strict controls. The day we dedicated the new dam, everyone showed up. Mrs. Chen gave a speech. Jake cracked a joke about Patricia finding out the only walls tougher than my dam were the ones in federal prison. And I stood there thinking about Sarah, how proud she'd be that we protected our friends and our home, not just from water, but from people who put greed above decency. So tell me, was I wrong to fight back? Have you ever stood up to someone who tried to bully you just because they thought they could drop a comment below, share your story? Tell me where you're watching from. Because honestly, this wasn't just about a dam. It was about making sure nobody ever gets away with destroying a community for their own profit and making damn sure they learn the hard way you don't mess with the wrong engineer.